Hello, everyone. My name is Alexander Lucard, and I am an HMIS system administrator for Montgomery County. Today, we begin the first of 4 income errors and how to fix them training. You're probably asking yourself, why do we have 4 of these training? And the answer is because income errors are the easiest mistakes to make in HMIS and the hardest to fix. In each of these 4 trainings, we are going to look at 2 different types of income errors. So at the end, you will have seen all 8 of the most common income errors that people make in HMIS. Now, these errors can take a while to figure out, and they can be hard to fix, which is why we want to do these trainings. So hopefully by the end, you will be better equipped to identify and fix those errors that come up in your APR report, and even those that sneak by your APR report that you have to do some digging to find and fix. So let's do the first one together. Our first client today is going to be Sammy Guevara. And we're just going to type in a few letters of the name. We don't have to type the whole thing in. As you can see, 2 letters in the first name, 2 letters in the last name. Minimum entry for maximum search potential. We click search, and there he is. There's Sammy Guevara. We're going to click on his name, and let's see if we can root out the income error in this client's account. We're going to go into the entry. We aren't going to change anything. We're just going to hit save and continue. And then when we look for income errors, we're going to be looking in 2 areas. The first is down here under monthly income/benefit, and this whole section from income from any source to total monthly income. And the second is going to be interim. And we can see that this client doesn't have any interims yet. So there's nothing to search there yet. So let's go take a look and see what we can find. Income from any source, yes. Let's look through the monthly income questions and see what we've got. And we've got $500 here. So we can see that the only income that's come in is $500 for the earned income. And total monthly income is $750. So right away, we can see there's an error here with $500 and $750, and we need to make these match. So the question then becomes, hey, where does the difference come from? Why did they put in 500 here and 750 here? And we want to figure out which is correct. However, there's another big clue here, technically 2 clues, that should key you in that something's really wrong. The first is that we have an end date for the earned income, right? Because we should only be ending an income when we start a new income, and we only start a new income when there's an interim. And remember, there's no interims here. So there should only be an end date when there's an interim. So right there, we see an error. Another error is we can see that the HUD verification is still green. Usually, if you end an income without starting a new one, you're going to get the angry red triangle instead of the happy green check mark. And as we can see here, there are no other earned incomes. There's only the one. So how is this maintaining a green check mark even though there's an end date in place? There's only one earned income and that one's closed. And finally, we can take a look at clue number 3, which is what we do with the view gross income. View gross income always shows the most recent income, what the income would be on their most recent interim. So even if you're in the entry or an older interim, like say the client has 10 interims and you're on the 5th one looking at things, if you click view gross income, this is going to show you the most recent, most current income. And we can see here that we have $2,250. Well, that can't be right. $500 here, $750 here, $2,250 there. So we can see there's a lot wrong here, but yet it's coming up as okay. So what's the problem? The big clue is that there are no interims again. The HUD verification is still green, and yet there's an end date for the earned income. So as someone who's been doing HMS for a really long time, this tells me one of two things happened. Either they ended the income here and started a new income without creating an interim, or they ended the income and started a new income under the client profile. You never, ever want to make changes on the client profile unless it's the social security number, veteran status, or name change. Any change you make to a client past their project start date, their entry date here, needs to be done with an interim. So if you change the income, there should be an interim. Do you change their disabilities? There should be an interim. Have they entered the program with a housing move-in date? There should be an interim. Annual assessment? There should be an interim. Any change you make to a client needs to have an interim. And the reason for that is if you don't do an interim, you'll only ever be able to see the entry date, what the client's record looked like as of 1/1/2021. And here we can see that an income ended on 4/5/2021, which would imply that they've started a new earned income on April 6th, the next day, 2021. But because they didn't do an interim, we can't see that. We can only see the entry date information. Anything past 1/1/2021 will not be visible without an interim, because that happens in the future, and this snapshot is the client's entry date. So this is why we always need to do an interim for any client change. Again, what happened here is one of two possible errors. Either the case manager went in and made the income changes under the client profile instead of doing it correctly by doing an interim, or they just did it here from the entry. They ended it and clicked add, which you never want to do. You never want to click the add button because, again, this is how errors are made. The add button is surprisingly not your friend. So we know that one of two things has happened here. Either way, the answer is that an interim should have been made. However, that's probably where the $750 comes from. My guess is that the income increased from $500 to $750, and that the case manager just did everything here under the entry screen, accidentally changed the total monthly income to $750 here, entered the new income of $750 here, but it's not visible because it takes place on 4/6/2021, and the entry date is 1/1/2021. However, why are we getting $2,250? Where is that coming from? Let's find out. Now, to view the incomes, what we want to do is create an interim. Logic would say that we want to create an interim for 4/6/2021, and that should at least let us see one. But what if this has been going on for months or, God forbid, years, and that they've just been doing all the income changes here under the entry instead of doing them with interims? So what I like to do is to see if we can catch that, and this is especially true with permanent supported programs where clients are in there for a year. I make an interim for really far out. I do add interim review, update, and I'm going to choose 12/31/2099, the end of 2099, because that will catch any possible ones, whether it's date typos or to make sure that this hasn't been going on for months and years past that first one that we can see. So we can see now we're in 12/31/2099. And look, here's our income errors. We can see that, yep, the client's earned income ended on 4/5/2021, and that the case manager tried to enter the new amount of $750 on 4/6/2020. But because they were doing it from the entry screen, they couldn't see it because this happens in the future. Remember, the entry screen is January 1st, 2021. and this change is 4/6/2021. So what happened, and I see this a lot, is that they're in the entry screen, they end the old income, start the new one without remember doing interim, and then they can't see their work because that work happens in the future, not at the screenshot, the shot in time, the point in time that we are looking at. Because again, remember, the entry screen is only going to show you what happened on 1/1/2020. So we can see here that they tried entering the new income on 4/6 without an interim, couldn't see it, went, oh, I must have done something wrong. Maybe I didn't save it. Let's do it again. And then they did it a third time, and then they just gave up because they're like, oh, something's wrong with the system and it's not showing the work that I know I did. Well, the problem isn't the system. The problem is user error. And because they didn't do an interim, they tripled up the new income, which is why we are getting the $2,250. Because what's 750 times 3? 2,250. So now we know what happened. We know that the case manager forgot to create the interim like they were supposed to with the date of 4/6/2021 and do the income. They did it from the entry. They did it 3 times because they couldn't see it and thought that the system wasn't saving their work. But really, the system was saving it, and you just couldn't see it, and you've tripled everything up. So how do we make the fix? Pretty easy. We're going to go out, and we're going to change the date of this interim. And we're going to change the date to 04/06/2021, which is the date that the change happened. We hit save and continue. We're going to choose update. And let's go fix things. Now, we're going to delete this one. We're going to delete this one because there's only one income that we need. And now we can see, yes, 750, 750, everything equals. View gross income. Yep, we fixed it. We deleted that extra $1,500 that showed the client was making. And now he's only making $750 a month. And this is so important. This is really important because that view gross income was $2,250. And remember, you have to base, if your program takes part of the client's income for rent at your program, you have to base it by what's in HMIS, regardless of how good your records are. HMIS is the be all and end all. It is the center of your universe. It is what your funders only accept. So if you had that 2,250 in there, you'd be having to take a portion of that erroneous non-existent amount for the rent rather than the 750. It could also mess up their benefits. It could also mess up their qualification for certain types of housing. So they have to be very, very careful with income errors. More importantly, income is the most heavily weighed question in the APR, in your SAGE, in your NOFA. And so an error like this could technically, if your COC is tight, drop you from tier 1, tier 2, and we don't want that. So let's take a look. Everything looks good, right? Yes, 750, 750. Everything looks good on the interim. So we can hit save and exit. And now we have one more thing to check. After we fix the interim, we always want to go back and make sure that the entry is correct. And look, we've still got an error in the entry. Yes, $500, which is their starting amount, and $750. And how did the $750 happen? Well, remember, the case manager did the $500 right on the entry, and then later on came back and made all the changes that should have been done in interim on the entry. So if we check the history here, we can see that 750 was originally done here, and we need to fix that. Now, we have to delete the 750 because, as you can see, it was tagged with an entry date of 1/1/2021 as well because they did it under the entry date. This timestamp is wrong. So as you can see, even though we're going to make a fix here, we have to go back into the interim. So now this is right. Right timestamp 1/1/21 for the $500 because here is 1/1/2021. So this is going to be fixed. All right. And now we're going to go into the interim. And now we have to redo 750 here so that it has the right timestamp. Because again, we deleted the erroneous one with the project start date timestamp. And now we have to go back into the interim, make this 750 here, hit save, and now let's look at the history. Now both total monthly incomes are correct. We have the one for 500, which is your project start date, the entry of Sammy Guevara into your program, and the 4/6, the 750, because these timestamps matter. So now the client is finally fixed, right? Let's say we go back in. We just want to go back in, project start date, save and continue, right? Monthly amount, 500, yes. 500, it's all good. All these match up. And the same here. We go interims. Let's take a look at that interim. We're going to choose update. And again, 750, yes, 750. We want to make sure that everything matches up on both the entry date and the interim. And if we had left that $750 that was originally entered on the entry, this would be correct, but we would get an APR income error at start because we had 500 on entry, but TMI was showing 750, which should have been originally done in the interim. And all this is required just to fix this one client's income error. This is why I say income errors are the easiest to make and the hardest to fix, because there is so much work and a little bit of detective skill in order to fix when we get an income error. So as you can see, we did all this just to fix one client's single income error, because there's a lot of parts to fix. But now the client's good to go. And hopefully the case manager, after having to make this fix and do all this work, will remember to always do an interim, never to change income under the entry screen or the client profile. Now, that's one client. Let's look at the second we're going to look at in this first of 4 training. Let's go to client point. And today we're going to do Nick Aldis. Again, 2 letters of the first name, 2 letters of the last name. That's all we really need to do. If duplicates come up, we can add some more letters. Let's do search. Nick Aldis, there's only one in the system. I know this is the right one from looking at that social security number and date of birth, comparing it to my record. So let's go in and see what's up with Nick's account. Again, project start date, save and continue. All right, so we can see that Nick came in on Valentine's Day, 2/14/2021, and he has an interim. Again, to fix income errors, we want to look at both the start date and each interim. So let's take a look and see what we've got. All right. Income from any source, yes. Total monthly income is 500. So let's see if we have a $500 amount somewhere. There we go. 500, yes, 500 total monthly income. Everything's matching up. HUD verification looks good. We can see that the SSI has an end date of 4/5. So what we should see is that that interim is on 4/6. Let's take a look. Click on the interim button. 4/6. So everything looks good so far. It doesn't look like there's any errors with the entry, but we know that there's an income error because it's been flagged. So let's try and figure out where it is. It must be on the interim. So let's take a look. Uh-oh, first sign that we've got an error. The HUD verification, angry red triangle, right? That lets us know that something is wrong. Okay. We can also see total monthly income, income from any source, and Ssdi is 600. So these are all matching up. So I've given you a little bit of a clue here on the screen. Do you see what the error is other than the HUD verification? And again, it's detective work. So unless you were paying close attention on the entry screen, you might not catch it here. Because again, income errors are the easiest to make and the hardest to fix. Do you remember what the error was? Let's go back and take a look. On the entry screen here, income is SSI, right? And on the interim, it's Ssdi. So that to me says that something's happened, because usually you don't change from SSI to Ssdi like that, especially in the middle of the year. As well, we see that there's something wrong with the HUD verification. Let's click on the HUD verification. And what we can see is that we don't have an open SSI, but we do have the SSI under the entry screen. So what this means is that someone closed the old SSI, the income that we had at entry of $500, and didn't start a new SSI of $0 or $600, whichever is right, but they did start a new Ssdi. Another good way to look is by clicking on the magnifying glass here. This is really helpful. We click on the magnifying glass, we do source of income, and this sorts every type of income by type and chronology. So we can see here 2 errors. We can see SSI started on 214 and 405, but we never started a new one on 46. As well, we have 2 open SSDIs, and we only ever want 1 open source of income for each type. So there should only be 1 alimony without an end date, 1 child support without an end date, 1 earned income without an end date, and so on. Here, we have 2 SSDIs without end dates, and that's going to be another issue. So we have a couple different things to fix. Now, the first thing we want to do is figure out why they changed from SSI to Ssdi. 1 of 2 things happen. 1, it could be user error. It could just be that they were in the drop-down menu and accidentally did Ssdi instead of SSI. They're right next to each other. The other error could be is that the client actually did have Ssdi and the case manager tried to fix it on the interim, but left it as SSI on the entry. So what we need to do is check our records. We need to check our records and see what this client has. Does Nick Aldis actually have SSI, or does he have Ssdi? We need to make sure, and once we know that, we can make the fix. In this case, we're going to say we looked at our records, and yeah, he has SSI. The Ssdi, coding it as Ssdi is the mistake. So let's figure out what we need to do to fix it. What we need to do is we need to change this, because we know that it's supposed to be SSI, not Ssdi. He's on Social Security, not Social Security Disability. And so that the 600 is the right dollar amount, but it's under the wrong type. This should be SSI. So there are 1 of 2 ways that we can fix this. The first is we can trash can, we can delete the Ssdi here, which will delete the $600 in Ssdi, and then we would have to start a new SSI of $600. Click the pencil, save and add another, fill all this out, which is perfectly fine. But an easier, faster way, both ways work, by the way, but this way is faster. We click on the pencil here on the Ssdi that is the error, and we're just going to change it to SSI. And see, what probably happened was they meant to click on SSI, slip of the wrist, and they got the Ssdi. It happens. User errors happen, and it's okay. We just need to identify them and fix them. So what we're going to do is we're going to change the Ssdi to SSI. Hit save, and now the angry red check mark or angry red triangle becomes the happy green check mark. We can see that the HUD verification is correct. That missing, we just changed that Ssdi to SSI, and it fixed everything. Let's go click on the magnifying glass again, sort by source of income. And here we can see we only have the 1 open Ssdi now, and we actually have an open SSI now. We can also see the history of the client's SSI. From February 14th to April 5th, they were making 500. On April 6th, it went up to 600. So again, HUD verification wants 1 open-ended income of each type. We can also see that we've fixed the error here. 600, 600. Let's view gross income just to be safe. 600. Because again, remember, view gross income only shows us what the client is making at their most recent. And so if this turned out to be $700, we'd know that there's probably an interim that they forgot to do or an income in the future that we need to fix or something like that. But we can see that 600 is matching up here in the most recent interim, which is a good sign. HUD verification is finally green. 600, 600, everything is matching up. We're going to hit save and exit. And then we just double check our work by making sure that everything looks right under monthly income. 500 still here, green check mark. 500 still here. So we can see the entry is complete and correct, and the interim is complete and correct. Again, a lot of work, a little detective skill in order to fix an income error. I know you're going to hear this a lot and be sick of me saying it by the end of these 4 trainings, but income errors, the easiest to make, the hardest to fix. And we've just done 2 income errors. And look how long this training has taken just to fix 2 clients. This is why you want to be so proactive in looking for income errors and fixing them. You're going to be looking at the APR. You're going to run that at least once a month at the very minimum and check the income errors there. And you're also going to be looking at each client a minimum of once a month and making sure that there are no income errors that the APR doesn't catch. So this has been our first of 4 income trainings. Again, these are income errors and how to catch them and how to fix them. You've got 1 down and there's 3 more to go. I hope that you're going to join me for each of those trainings. Thank you guys and have a great day.